It's a warm morning in Sumatra. Roughly 74,000 years ago, you're crouched by a river, prying open shellfish for breakfast. Then, the ground shudders under your feet. The birds go silent. The water in your cup trembles on its own. You've felt small shakes before, so you don't run. You watch the mountain. What you can't know is that it's about to make the biggest bang any human has ever survived. You'll find out how your family read the warning signs, why some of your relatives walked toward the smoke on purpose, and the faint mark that day may have left inside your own blood. For most of us, a volcano means one thing. That is danger. But your ancestors didn't see a death trap. They saw the best land around. Here's the fact nobody tells you. Volcanic ash is packed with minerals. When it breaks down, it turns plain dirt into some of the richest farming soil on Earth. Plants explode out of it. And where plants thrive, so do the animals. So the ground near a volcano was greener. The hunting was better. Warm springs bubbled up from below, giving shelter on cold nights. To a hungry family, a smoking mountain wasn't a warning. It was a promise of food. There's proof this pull is old and stubborn. Even today, millions of people farm the slopes of active volcanoes. They know the mountain can kill them. They stay anyway because the harvest is worth the gamble. Your ancestors made the exact same bet 70,000 years before us. But a bet like that only pays off if you know when to fold. And early humans had no instruments, no sensors, no scientists tracking pressure deep underground. All they had were their sense. So they learned to read it. A volcano rarely blows with no warning. It grumbles first. The ground trembles as molten rock forces its way up. Those little shakes, the ones that make water quiver in a cup, were the first clue. Then came the smell. Rising magma leaks gas, and one of those gases stinks of rotten eggs. That sharp sulfur stink drifting down the valley meant the mountain was waking up. The animals knew before the people did. Deer and birds can feel tiny tremors we'd miss, and they can smell danger sooner. When the game suddenly fled the slopes and the sky emptied of birds, a smart band paid attention. And then ash, a dusting of gray grit on the leaves, grit in the drinking water. When the ash started falling, the reading was over. It was time to move. Now, most eruptions a band could outwalk, but this one was different. The mountain was Toba on the island of Sumatra, and when it finally blew, roughly 74,000 years ago, it produced one of the largest eruptions in 2 million years. The numbers are hard to picture, so try this. Toba threw out enough rock and ash to bury a small country meters deep. It blasted a hole so wide that the crater filled with water and became a lake. That lake is over 50 miles long. You can see it from space. It is the scar. The loudest eruption in modern memory was Krakatoa in the same part of the world. It was heard thousands of miles away and deleted tens of thousands of people, but Toba was many times bigger. The ash didn't stay in Sumatra. Winds carried it for thousands of miles. There's a layer of Toba ash sitting in the ground in India, in the Indian Ocean, even off the coast of Africa. A gray line in the rock, the same age everywhere, left by a single afternoon. For any human within reach, there was no reading this and no outrunning it. The lucky ones were simply far away. The question is, what happened to everyone after the bang? Because the explosion was only the beginning. When that much ash and gas goes up, it doesn't just fall back down. The finest particles rise high into the sky and spread around the whole planet, and they block the sun. Toba pumped out a haze of sulfur that hung in the air like a dirty veil. Sunlight that should have warmed the ground bounced off it instead. Across much of the world, the temperature dropped. Some estimates say it fell by several degrees and stayed low for years. Think about what that means for people with no farms and no shops. Colder summers meant plants grew less. Fewer plants meant fewer animals. Picture a summer where the sun never quite burns through, where the leaves come in thin and the herds grow lean. This is the part that nearly ends the story. A stretch of hard, dim, hungry years, what scientists call a volcanic winter. For families already scraping by, that was the real killer. Not the explosion, the long gray famine that came after it. So we know what they were up against: darkness, cold, and hunger stretching on for years. What we don't know yet is how anyone lived through it, and that's the real puzzle. The answer starts on the coast. Inland, if the plants die, you starve. But the sea doesn't work that way. Shellfish clinging to the rocks don't need bright summers. They keep growing whether the sky is clear or gray. A family that lived by the shore had a pantry that stayed open through the whole volcanic winter. We can actually see this. At a place called Pinnacle Point, on the coast of South Africa, there are caves where people lived through exactly this era. They left behind piles of cracked shells, small stone blades, and the ash of old fires. Even as the world dimmed, they were eating, making tools, keeping warm. Fire was the other lifeline. It cooked tough food into something the body could use. It kept a shivering group alive through nights that had turned cruel. And it held the band together in one place, around one light, when everything outside was dying. The last tool was the oldest one: feet. When a valley gave up, people walked. They followed the coast to the next bay, the next river mouth, the next patch of green. Survival wasn't one clever trick. It was moving, sharing, and refusing to stay where the land had quit. And here is where the story reaches into you. Scientists studying human DNA noticed something strange. Compared with most animals, humans are oddly alike. Two people from opposite ends of the earth share far more of their genes than you'd expect. It's as if the whole species once squeezed through a very narrow gate. Read the DNA carefully, and it hints at a moment when our numbers crashed. Not billions, not millions. By some estimates, humanity may have dropped to only a few thousand adults. A single small town's worth of people, carrying the future of the entire species. For years, one idea tied it all together: Toba. The timing seemed to line up: the Great Eruption, the Volcanic Winter, and a near extinction of humankind, all around the same 74,000 years ago. It was a tidy, terrifying story. We almost didn't make it. There was just one problem. When researchers went looking for the bodies, they couldn't find the disaster. Because here's the twist: the people at Pinnacle Point didn't just survive Toba. They seem to have barely broken stride. Dig on the other side of the disaster, and you find the same thing. In India, a team dug up tools buried under the Toba ash, and then more tools sitting right on top of it. The same kind of people, making the same kind of gear, before and after the biggest bang in human history. They didn't vanish. They brushed off the grit and carried on. So the tidy story cracked. Toba may not have nearly wiped us out at all. The dip in our numbers might have come earlier or slower, or for reasons that had nothing to do with a mountain in Sumatra. The eruption stopped being the villain that almost killed us, which leaves the real answer to how ancient humans survived a volcanic eruption. It wasn't luck, and it wasn't one safe spot. It was everything they already were. They read the ground before it turned on them. They lived where the sea would feed them when the land couldn't. They carried fire and each other into the dark. That morning in Sumatra, when the water trembled in your cup, your family didn't have much. A sharp eye, a warm fire, a coastline, and the stubborn habit of walking toward tomorrow. It turned out to be enough. It's still in you. Every person alive is proof the walk worked.